Hey, how's it going, everybody? So I just want to talk about First Peter 1, my thoughts on it. Um, when we read First Peter 1, it says, Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ. Now keep in mind, he was an apostle to the Jews. Here, let's look up Galatians here. Galatians 2:7. Paul said that when they saw that I had been entrusted with the gospel of uncircumcision, the Gentiles, even as Peter with the gospel of the circumcision. Okay, so Peter was an apostle to Jews the whole time, even though he did preach the gospel to Cornelius' household. And 5 chapters later, he mentioned briefly about the Gentiles. Paul was on the scene at that point, and basically it's just a way for Paul to take off from there. So it was a huge deal. Acts chapter 10. It was the beginning, marked the beginning of the promise made to Abraham that be a father of many nations. So it basically the official transition of the gospel from the Jews to Gentiles. So in the next chapter, Acts 11, Jewish people are all excited about that because they recognize what's going on there. So anyway, so keep in mind, Peter was an apostle to the Gentiles, or the Jews, sorry. And so when he's writing to the elect, dispersion upon this Galatia, okay, that was in this area here. Let's go to, okay, so these were the 5 churches that Peter wrote to. Alrighty, now this was the stick of Joseph per Ezekiel 37, okay? Here in Jerusalem was the stick of Judah per Ezekiel 37, alright? So Peter was writing to them, and what I think is going on here, sojourn of the dispersion, or some translations, those who have, let's see here, let's look at another translation here. Dispersion, let's see here, we have American Standard, scattered, okay? So these were obviously the Jewish people, Christians that have been scattered. You look at the Jewish history, all right? And what's actually going on here, he is in a subtle way, I believe, telling them it's time for the gathering. All right. So keep in mind, Paul to the Church of Second Thessalonica, or Church of Thessalonica, sorry. He had pointed out, talking about their gathering. Now, unfortunately, with Christians today, they're deeply confused by this. Deeply confused. Coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. You go back to the Old Testament, and coming to the Lord is not some bodily return and, to the earth. And remember, Jesus said, I came not of this world. He also said, better that I do go so I can send a helper. Well, if he bodily returns, how are you going to send a helper? But we have to go back to the Old Testament to really understand what we're talking about. Fortunately, it is wildly out of control. Christian today, their understanding of this is not some bodily return. This is a type of judgment where God pours his wrath on a nation and he frees those who are his people. And that's what happened between AD 66 and AD 73. The sign occurred in the sky, May 2nd, AD 66. All right. So Paul points out the gathering. They were anticipating this. And so, by the way, I do not believe Second Thessalonians is written in AD 53. That is so laughable that scholars actually believe that. It's based on some statement. Watch my video on that. I lost all sense of security on scholars when they claim it's written in AD 53. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Go watch my video on that. It's just. You really got to do your own homework. You cannot lean on scholars on everything, okay? But anyway, he points out here what has to happen first, the falling away. So we had the Jewish revolt. That was the falling away. That was earlier of 86, or September of 66. Or no, I'm sorry. No, that it was before that. Sorry, it was April of AD 66, around there. And then the man of sin reveals that occurred on August 14th of AD 66. It was Elder, the son of perdition. Okay, he was the grandson of Judas Iscariot, the one that betrayed Jesus. And Ananias is his dad, so he was the son of Judas. Okay, so you had Judas and Ananias and then Elder. Okay, so they were the son of perdition. Okay, and so anyway, so that was revealed on August 14th, 1866. So let's see here. Do I have? Here we go. So this is the timeline to help us understand here how it all fits together. This is a horizontal timeline they put together. Man, it's actually the first timeline in history that's actually to scale. That's the actual working timeline. This is a simplified version. If you want a more detailed version, just click on this link right here. You have access to this in the description below, by the way. So let's just zoom in a little bit here. So August 14th was when the laws was revealed. All right. And so Peter had to have immediately written after it. It's his way, is he was there in Jerusalem. He was the one feeding them. Remember John 21, Jesus asked him three times, do you love me, feed my sheep? So Peter would have been feeding them. Okay, this all had to do with the stick of Judah. Okay. And that time, the laws were revealed, again, as August 14th. So now Peter knows the laws were revealed. So if you're First Peter, now you know it's been revealed, that would have been, he would have written immediately to the 5 churches, let him know it's time to go for the gathering. So by wording it the way he did, First Peter, scattered throughout, and keep in mind, you're anticipating the gathering. You know, Paul had already written to them, 2 Thessalonians, and this was this would have been written early 60s, not 8053. That is so laughable. I just can't get over it. Yeah, scholars actually believe that. So anyway, scattered. So it's his way of subtly telling me it's time to go for a gathering. Keep in mind, they had to leave for a gathering quietly so that the persecution would not follow them. That's why he worded it this way, right? And then 4 chapters later, chapter 5, he's telling where he's at. Babylon. Okay. So now he's not using apocalyptic literature here. He's not using metaphors. He's giving them 50% of the information they need to know. They already knew which Babylon it was. Why? Because the Jewish mindset, let's go to Matthew 3. Where was it? Matthew 2 or 1. It's the scene where Joseph and Mary fled to Egypt. So I don't remember the passage, but it was the passage that let's see here. Yeah, carrying away to Babylon. That would have been Babylon, Egypt. All right. Maybe the next chapter. I really need to show this to you. Anyway, there's a passage where they fled to Egypt. Okay. Yeah, here we go. In Egypt. Okay, so that they had already fled to Egypt. All right, so that was in the Jewish mind a safe place. Okay, so when all it took, what Peter say, Babylon, they already knew it had been Egypt, not Iraq, Babylon, Iraq. Now, both Babylon, Iraq, and Babylon, Egypt, they both spoke Aramaic, which was Peter's language. Okay, people who try to make us to be Rome, there are so many problems with that. First of all, Rome didn't even speak Peter's language. Secondly, at the time he wrote this, it was right in the middle of Nero persecution. Why would he have them gather in the most dangerous place in the world in the Jewish mind? That makes no sense. All right, the safest place in the world was Babylon, Egypt. All right, and so we look at the logistics. Now, these are the 5 churches. They would have spread the word. This is all behind the scene, behind the Gentile scene, because they could not, again, risk the persecution following them. So they would have gotten in their boats and immediately headed to Peter. Now, you look at all these water channels, it's funneled right to where Peter would have been. And note there are all these little islands along the way. They would have had their boats all along there, alrighty. And let's see here. And then when it came time to take off for Peter to escort them, he would have started at the bottom and worked his way up and gathered them all as he went. They escorted them to Petra. This is right here. That's where their gathering took place. That is where I believe 1 Thessalonians was fulfilled, where they met in the air. This only applied to the house of Israel. It did not apply to Gentiles. And that occurred on September 22nd, AD 73, on their last day. So, let's see here. So hopefully that you can see how the logistics is already taken care of by God. When we look at the water channels, and Revelation 12 talk about the earth splitting. It's right there. It's over the flood. Petra has a history of floods. It all fits perfectly. Where Pella, on the other hand, that Eusebius claimed, nothing makes sense. It would have made it a lot more difficult for Peter to be able to feed them, per John 21. That you had the Roman army going through. There's no earth splitting. Based on Revelation 12, there's no evidence of that. It makes no sense. So I believe that he deliberately, it's deliberate misinformation. And I think it's under direction of Constantine. That's what happens when you have no separation of church versus state. So anyway, so hopefully you can see how the logistics make sense. And see here what else. Yeah, and keep in mind, with Peter being a Jew, to the apostles, the Jews, he was one of the 12 to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so he was busy with the Jewish people. Paul was already taking care of the Gentiles. Let's go to there are many passages. Actually, I'm going to refer you to a video in a link below. Was the Great Commission fulfilled? It's an excellent video by Zach Bauer. Let's go to Colossians 1, if we can get there. So 1:6, the gospel had already been preached. Already. Colossians 1:23, same thing. Had already been fully preached. Paul already took care of this. And so there's no reason for Peter to even have this on his mind. Okay, he was so busy with Israel and feeding them. Per John 21, let's go to that passage too, John 21. All right. Okay. Now keep in mind, we look at the chronology. Only the Jews were in view here. The Gentiles did not come on the scene until 3.5 years later. So only the Jewish people were in view here. And so when Peter asked him to feed my lambs, he totally talked about the Jewish people. And this is right after Peter had already drawn in fish. Okay, so Peter to feed the Jewish people, and he also wrote to the Jewish people in all 3 of his epistles. So you had 1 Peter, which is written to the stick of Joseph. And then 2 Peter chapter 1-2, with the first epistle written to the stick of Judah in Jerusalem. And 2 Peter chapter 3 would have been his second letter to them in the stick of Judah. All right. So he was given a huge responsibility to feed them. So when you look at the logistics, it makes perfect sense. He goes from here, goes out and feeds them. He fishes along the way and feeds them. And when he comes back to feed his family, he fishes and he feeds them. So it's going back and forth between his family and Jerusalem. All right. So it makes no sense for him to be in Rome. That'd been a long way for him to go, and we're talking 1,400 miles one way. And it's the most dangerous place in the world. They don't even speak his language. It makes no sense. And wherever you believe Babylon is, that's where they had to go for their gathering. And it makes no sense for them to go there. Where did the earth split? Where would they have? These were their final days, and Petra makes way more sense. It had biblical support, tons of biblical support. Pella had no biblical support whatsoever, and Rome, which is just considered one of the beasts in the Book of Revelation, it makes no sense for him to go there. So all these writings about claim that he was in Rome, I believe every single drop of ink was fabrication. It's all false information. Could have been that the writer did never even wrote it. The writer had been modified. And I believe it would have been under Constantine and Eusebius doing the work for him. Why would Constantine do that? Keep in mind, he was murdering Christians, right? And he had a so-called conversion, his first conversion anyway. That was used to mask his true intentions. And so he viewed Christians as an opportunity for political power. And that's why he was doing a rewriting history, so everything centralized around him amongst the churches, among Rome. He was in Rome, okay? And so supposedly at the end of his life, he had a conversion. Maybe that wasn't true, but you look at the fruit of his first so-called conversion, there is no evidence he was a Christian. None whatsoever. He was murdering his own family. I think it was all about power, which explains why he started the church building program. Anyway, those are my thoughts on 1 Peter 1, what's actually going on there. This was the stick of Joseph and telling him it's time to go for a gathering. Peter would have saw that the laws weren't revealed, and I believe it was shortly after they had finally gone to Petra. Peter has still been feeding them, and around that time where he would have been killed, all right, under the hand of the Roman army. And so he had been feeding them all the way to the end. John 21 seems to indicate that he fed them all the way to his death. So I think that covers everything. There's a lot of information. Again, he's not using apocalyptic literature in 1 Peter. And that's all he had to do, just say Babylon. They would have known instantly. The five churches, the Jewish Christians would know instantly where he was referring to. They would have known, obviously, he's not referring to Babylon, Iraq. And they certainly would have known it was not Rome. Because at that time, it was the most dangerous place on earth, right in the middle of Iraq persecution. It's just unfortunate how we Christians just have a lack of understanding of history. So this was the 42-month tribulation under Nero, alrighty? And so it was right in the middle of that where Peter would have written to them. And then you had the 42 months, and this just gathers out the Roman Empire, and then the 42 months at Jerusalem. This would have been the stick of Judah. Nero declared war on Jerusalem, February 66, and it ended in August of 70. So, 42 months. So anyway, I could go on and on, but I'll just stop there. So anyway, hopefully you, those are just my thoughts on 1 Thessalonians 1, what's really going on there. And there's a lot that ties to it. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and hope you continue to enjoy your studies, and you have an awesome day.